They killed him for asking questions. That's how dangerous the truth can be. Socrates, a man who never wrote a single word, never built anything, never conquered anything. All he did was walk around Athens asking people questions. And those questions were so powerful, so threatening to people's beliefs, that they sentenced him to death. Because he exposed something nobody wanted to admit. Most people don't actually know what they're talking about. They just think they do. And Socrates proved it by asking simple questions they couldn't answer. So here's what nobody tells you. The reason you're confused about life isn't because you don't have enough answers. It's because you've never asked the right questions. Let's go back. About 2400 years ago, Athens, Greece, the most advanced city in the world at the time, philosophy, democracy, art, culture. Everyone thinks they're smart. Everyone has opinions about everything. And right in the middle of all this, there's Socrates. An old guy who walks around barefoot, doesn't dress well, doesn't have money, doesn't have status, just asks questions. He'd approach someone, usually someone important, someone respected, and he'd start a conversation. He'd ask them about something they claimed to understand. Justice, courage, love, virtue, whatever, and a person would give an answer, confident, sure of themselves, because they're an expert, right? They've thought about this. They know what they're talking about. But then Socrates would ask another question, a simple one. Can you explain what you mean by that? Can you give an example? Does that apply in this situation too? And slowly, through just asking questions, he'd reveal that the person didn't actually understand what they were talking about. They had an opinion. They had words. But they didn't have real knowledge. Their definitions contradicted themselves. Their examples didn't fit their principles. Their logic fell apart under basic questioning. And by the end of the conversation, they'd realize they didn't actually know what they thought they knew. This made people furious. Because Socrates wasn't attacking them directly, he was just asking questions. But those questions exposed that their confidence was fake. Their expertise was shallow. Their certainty was an illusion. And nobody likes having their illusions destroyed. Especially not in public. Especially not by some old guy who doesn't even have the decency to dress properly. But here's what Socrates understood. Most people go through life with unexamined beliefs. They adopt ideas from their parents, their culture, their friends, their society. And they never question them. They just accept them as true. They say things like, "This is how things are. This is what's right. This is what matters." And they're completely certain about it. But if you ask them why, if you dig even a little bit deeper, they can't explain it. They just know because they've always known. Because everyone else believes it too. Socrates said that's not knowledge. That's just repetition. That's just conditioning. Real knowledge comes from questioning, from examining, from thinking for yourself instead of just accepting what you're told. He had this famous saying, "The unexamined life is not worth living." And what he meant was this. If you never question your beliefs, your values, your assumptions, you're not really living. You're just following a script someone else wrote for you. You think you're making choices, but you're not. You're just doing what you've been programmed to do, and you go your whole life without ever knowing who you actually are or what you actually believe. So Socrates spent his life teaching people how to think, not what to think. How to think, through questions. He'd ask things like, "What is justice?" And someone would say, "Justice is giving people what they deserve." Okay, but what do people deserve? Well, good people deserve good things, and bad people deserve bad things. Okay, but who decides who's good and who's bad? Well, society does. Okay, but what if society is wrong? What if society says slavery is good? Does that make it just? See what he's doing. He's not giving answers. He's revealing that the easy answers don't actually work. That reality is more complicated than we pretend. That we need to think deeper. And this is what got him killed. Because when you start questioning everything, you threaten the people in power. You threaten the system. You make people uncomfortable. The leaders of Athens didn't like that Socrates was teaching young people to question authority, to think for themselves, to not just accept what they were told. So they accused him of corrupting the youth. And they sentenced him to death. They gave him a choice. Stop teaching, stop asking questions, or drink poison and die. And here's where Socrates showed what he was really made of. He chose death, because a life where you can't question, where you can't think freely, where you have to just accept what you're told, that's not a life worth living. He said, I know that I know nothing. That was his whole philosophy. He wasn't claiming to have all the answers. He was claiming that most people who think they have answers are fooling themselves. And the first step to real wisdom is admitting how much you don't know. Because when you think you already know everything, you stop learning. You stop growing. You stop questioning. You become stuck in your beliefs even when they're wrong. But when you admit you don't know, when you stay curious, when you keep asking questions, that's when you actually start understanding things. Now, let's bring this to your life. Because you're living with unexamined beliefs right now. Things you're completely certain about that you've never actually questioned. Maybe it's about what success means. You're chasing money, status, career advancement. But have you ever asked yourself why? What will that actually give you? What are you really looking for? And will those things actually provide it? Or maybe it's about relationships. You have beliefs about how relationships should work, how people should act, what love means. But have you ever questioned those beliefs? Where did they come from? Are they actually true? Or are they just stories you've been told? Or maybe it's about yourself. You think you're a certain type of person. You say things like, I'm just not good at that. I'm not the kind of person who does that. I can't change. But have you ever questioned those beliefs? Are they actually true? Or are they just limits you've accepted without examining them? This is what Socrates would do. He'd question everything. Not to be difficult, not to argue, but to find truth. To separate what's real from what's just comfortable to believe. And here's how you do it. Start asking yourself questions. Real questions. Not the easy ones. The hard ones. Why do I believe this? Where did this belief come from? Is it actually true, or is it just something I've always believed? What evidence do I have? What if I'm wrong? Most people never ask these questions. They just assume their beliefs are right. They surround themselves with people who agree with them. They avoid information that contradicts what they already think, and they stay stuck in the same patterns forever. But if you start questioning, if you start examining your beliefs honestly, everything changes. You start seeing what's real, what actually matters, what you actually want instead of what you think you should want. Let's make this practical. Think about your career. You're probably stressed, working hard, trying to climb the ladder, chasing promotions, more money, more status. But ask yourself Socrates' question. Why? What's the actual goal here? What do you think success will give you? Happiness? Security? Respect? And will it actually give you those things? Or are you chasing something that won't actually satisfy you even if you get it? These are hard questions, and most people never ask them. They just keep grinding, keep chasing, keep sacrificing their time and health and relationships for a goal they've never actually examined. Or think about your relationships. You're probably frustrated with someone. They're not meeting your expectations. They're not acting the way you think they should. But ask yourself, where did those expectations come from? Are they fair? Are they realistic? What if your idea of how people should act is wrong? What if you're the one who needs to change your thinking, not them? Again, hard questions, uncomfortable questions. But these are the questions that lead to actual understanding instead of just repeated frustration. Here's another one. Think about your values. What do you think is important? What do you think is right? Success, family, freedom, security. Whatever it is, now ask yourself why. Why is that important? And don't just say because it is. Dig deeper. What does that value actually mean to you? Where did you get it? Have you chosen it, or have you just inherited it? This is the Socratic method. Question everything. Not to destroy everything, but to find what's actually true, what actually holds up under examination. Most people are afraid to do this, because what if they question something and realize they've been wrong? What if they've been chasing the wrong things? What if they've been living according to beliefs that don't actually serve them? But Socrates would say that's exactly why you need to question, because living based on unexamined beliefs is worse than discovering you were wrong. At least when you discover you're wrong, you can change course. You can find something better, something true. But if you never question, you'll just keep following the same path, even if it's leading you somewhere you don't actually want to go. This is why they killed Socrates. Because questions are dangerous. They threaten comfortable lies. They expose fake expertise. They make people face truths they'd rather avoid. But questions are also the only path to real wisdom. Not the fake wisdom of people who think they know everything, but the real wisdom of people who understand how much they don't know and keep searching anyway. Socrates never claimed to be wise. He claimed to be a student, always learning, always questioning, always examining. And that's what made him wiser than everyone who claimed to have all the answers. You can do the same thing. Right now, today. Start questioning, not everything at once. Just start. Pick one belief, one assumption, one thing you're certain about. And ask yourself, am I actually right about this? How do I know? What if I'm wrong? What would change if I questioned this? That's how it starts. One question, then another, and slowly, you start seeing more clearly, thinking more deeply, living more intentionally. Most people will never do this. They'll stay comfortable in their unexamined beliefs, and they'll wonder why life doesn't make sense, why they're not happy, why things don't work out the way they expected. But you can be different. You can question. You can examine. You can think. And that's where real wisdom lives. Socrates died for this. But what he taught is still here, still waiting, still available to anyone brave enough to ask the questions. Watch the next video to keep questioning what everyone else accepts.